Welcome to the Refined Strength podcast. Here with one of my best friends, Danielle Rainwater, all the way from Washington
Oh,
State.
yeah.
So catch me up on what's been going on in your life first before we get to our topic.
Well, hello everyone. I'm Danielle Rainwater. Life has been a bit crazy this past month. We all go through big transitional periods, I feel like, in our life, transitional seasons, and that's definitely been one that I have been in the past month, and probably one of the biggest transitions I think that I have done. If any of you know me that are listening to the podcast, my boyfriend and I, the past 4 years, have owned a gym in Bothell, Washington. Rachel is sporting the swag, and we opened about 4 years or 4 months before COVID, and it was just not an ideal time to open a brick and mortar business, especially a gym. And unfortunately, last month we had to make the decision and close the doors. So that's been a big transition for us, relationship wise, just day to day wise. Jeff and I mean, Rachel knows all of our history, but basically our relationship has been Body Shop. We haven't known our relationship outside of Body Shop. I was able to start my own coaching business while at Body Shop. And now I'm transitioning. I still have my coaching business, but it's without that brick and mortar around me. And so I don't see my clients as much as I used to. I do have clients like you, outside of Washington, but it's just an adjustment because I'm so used to seeing so many of them all the time. But now I don't have that in-person connection. So it's an adjustment. Like, I'm sure for you, you're kind of used to not seeing them. So not having that connection day to day is normal for you. But me, for some of mine, I'm like, I haven't talked to her in a day. Is she okay? Is everything okay? So it's just an adjustment period, but it's been a good growing process, and I've learned a lot. And I think it's pushing me to new avenues in business, and it's pushing me to more uncomfortable situations where it's going to help me grow. And we all know that you have to be uncomfortable to grow, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. Just we're kind of finding a new level of normal, not being in the gym or being there 24/7, and having a little more time to spend on our relationship. But then I also have more time to pour into my business and my clients. So it's really trying to find out where I want to improve, where I want to grow, versus having to kind of split my time between my business and the gym.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big change. Being not only the change of just your actual environment, but like you said, the change in your relationship.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's been fear of just how will the relationship be
Oh, yeah.
without this thing that we are both so passionate about together and
Mm-hmm.
work together on. How has that changed your relationship since then?
Honestly, and I think this was a big thing that got me through the transitional period, because the business was actually Jeff's. I say we owned it, but he was the sole owner. I just was a big help. And
Owner by association.
yeah. And it was a lot of financial burden on him. And Jeff is very much a provider. And that is that's how he wants to show his love. That's how he wants to be in life. That's just how he was raised, what he's known. He has military background. So it's actually it's helped our relationship a lot. There was that fear, oh man, do we have anything in what do we talk about? We don't have the gym. Do we have something to talk about? But it's actually it's been kind of nice to not be breathing down each other's backs every hour of the day. Even when we weren't at home, we were together at the gym and things like that. And now we have space from each other, so it's kind of nice to come home and just be like, how was your day? What did you do? I don't know. So it's actually been really good, and he's just not as stressed as he used to be. So he's just a more relaxed, happy human, and that just makes our relationship so much better too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. So how has this been in terms of how you see your future as a competitor too? Because kind of getting into our topic today, talking through mistakes that a lot of competitors make, especially early on in their career,
Yeah.
like how have you seen, just like seen into the future, how this change affects your life as a competitor? So I know there's lots of changes that are like kind of maybe happening in the next year or so for you.
Yeah. Um, I mean, as far as like my life as a competitor, I I feel like I was very good and I was able to kind of keep that separate from like a business owner just because I was competing before I met Jeff, before we had Body Shop, like, and I feel like that goal has always been like in my heart. And so taking the gym away, that doesn't change that overall goal. But honestly, I feel like it's allowed me to get back. Not that I didn't enjoy my training while we had the gym, but when you're training in the place that you work and the place that you own, you can never like fully, and I'm sure other people that own gyms or work in a gym can relate. You never fully like turn off, and your sole focus isn't in your training because it's like you walk into the bathroom in between sets and you're like, oh crap, the paper towels need to be refilled, the toilet paper needs to be refilled, or like you're using a machine and you're like, why is it squeaking? And then you see
Yeah.
people like at the front desk, and so it's like you're never fully just like in the zone. And so that was one thing that when we were talking about the gym closing down, I was deciding what I was going to do about my business. Was I going to go solely online? Was I still going to offer in person? I really wanted to keep my place of business and my own place of training separate. And I've been able to do that. And it's like my training has just gone up, like the concentration, the mind, like just everything. Like my training has just been like out of this world. And I keep telling Jen every check-in, I'm like, I don't know what it is. My workouts are just like insane. And I just feel like the focus is back. And it's like when I'm in the gym, I have one thing on my mind, and that's like to make the improvements I need to make for stage. And it's not like, are there people at the front desk? Is this gym member happy? Is because we had dogs at the gym too, so I'm like, are the dogs everywhere? Like, is it clean? Did a dog poop? Like, my focus is in training. So I think as a competitor, it's honestly going to benefit me in the long run. And I just posted a comparison of like the growth from like February to July, and even though we just like closed down this month, I just feel like because I am making the most of my sessions in the gym now, that it's like the gains are just like insane.
Hmm. Well, and
So
also you're like the gains are more visible too when you
yeah.
have less stress and
Yes,
inflammation on your
yes,
body.
yes.
So
And we all know stress is just the freaking killer of anything
yeah.
health wise. So
Well, and like that kind of tells me too that like I'm so glad that you ended up deciding not to prep this year, just like for
oh
your
my gosh,
own
yeah.
like mental health, but also like your stress management. Because we all want to say like, oh, I can handle this, I can handle everything, because like we can
Oh.
handle a lot, but like this is a huge transitionary period, and it's also like the year you're really building up your online business more.
Mhm.
And coming from experience, doing a prep during the time of like building that up or moving,
Moving. Yeah.
like all huge life changes. That's one of the biggest things I try to avoid with my clients
Mhm.
who are starting a prep is like, no, there's no perfect time to start a prep, but if
Yes.
you can avoid starting one when you're going to have multiple big life changes,
Mhm.
you're going to be so much happier and probably more successful.
Totally. It's like life is always going to happen. You're always going to have something that comes up, but like big life changes like you said, like a move, a wedding, like things like that you are planning in the future, definitely want to plan around that. And it's funny because like I didn't even know when I decided to take this whole season off. So my last show was in December in Texas. Um I didn't even know that this was gonna happen, but it was just like there was like in my heart I was like I need to take, because I'm also a big advocate of like if you're gonna make the improvements you need to take the time out of the deficit. Your body needs to live in maintenance for a while. And I've been prepping for a really long time. I prepped like all year last year, and I'm like, you know what, I need to like not just talk the talk, I need to walk the walk, because I know it's only going to benefit me down the road. And so there just was this thing that was pulling on my heart that was like, no, it's better for you long term to take this time off and take the year off, even not just like from a mental perspective. But if I want to reach my goal of getting my pro card, it was obvious that I still needed to grow. So you can't grow in a deficit. And it was just like, it was crazy how it all worked out, because now I'm going through, and I did say like, because I want to really take my online coaching. Like, I've been doing a lot of lifestyle and I do have athletes now, but that's definitely in the direction I want to lean more into, getting more athletes and things like that. And I was like, you know what? I just want to pour into my business a little bit more this year. But, and then all of this happened, and then there might be even more bigger changes like in the months to come. So it's just overall better that that was a decision that I made.
Yeah, I think sometimes even if we don't know the real reason for something like
Mm-hmm.
holding off, because like you kind of know before you know almost.
Yeah,
Like I
totally.
remember having a conversation with you where you were like loosely considering, like you kind of knew you were staying in off season all year, but you were loosely considering maybe going into a prep for like end of year again.
Yeah.
And I remember like us talking about that, and just like me really hoping that you'd see the just exponential benefits
Yeah.
of what everything you just said. And so I
Mhm.
think like even at that time you probably knew, but there's always that part of us that's like,
It's
oh,
the little FOMO.
yeah,
Yeah.
I just want to get on stage again, or like I
Mhm.
just like I really like I think I'm so close. And like when you're so close, I think this is a great lesson for people. When you're really close, like if you've done one season or multiple seasons and you're that close to the pro card or that close to the overall, or whatever it is
Mhm.
you're chasing, why continue to just be really close
Yeah.
when you can take more time off, spend more time becoming way closer, not even
Mhm.
close, but undeniable.
Yeah.
And a lot of people early on, they like, I'm going to be undeniable, but like they're only taking 4 month off seasons.
Yeah.
They're doing a prep for an entire year because they're that close.
Mhm.
And it's doing them a disservice because they're not realizing that like everybody else is also really close,
Yeah, especially when you get
especially
up
when
to
you go to a
nationals.
national show.
Like, yeah. Like, it's like the little things. Like, yes, you may win an overall at a regional show, and or even get nationally qualified at a regional show, but it's like, take a look at what's showing up at nationals, like regionals and nationals. And it also depends like where you're doing the show at, right? Like, there's bigger shows in like Texas and Florida and stuff like that. But like for us here, I mean, we're getting more decent shows. I think the shows are growing, as you've seen, since we've started competing
Yep.
here. But still, the you take a look at what's showing up at nationals versus what's showing up at regional shows, and it's a completely different like level of competition.
Yeah.
And like you said, like, I think it's good for people if you're wondering like where you are at nationals, or like where, if you're close to nationals and you're like, I just want to see, you go in with no expectations and you're like, I just want to see where I line up. Okay, if you like, it fits your budget, okay, go do that. But like, if you're in second call outs, like not even in the first, like, it is time for a long off season, because like you said, you don't want to keep getting up there and getting so close. Like, you just want to get up there and do the damn thing.
Yeah.
So
So you've been to 3 national shows, not right, like 3 pro qualifying
four.
shows. 4? Okay.
Yeah, I did USA's in 2018. I did the Amateur Olympia in 2021, and then I did USA's in 2023. And wait, yeah, and then Nationals in
Okay,
2023.
that's right. I forgot about the second trip to USA's.
Yeah.
So, and what was your best placing for a national show?
Amateur Olympia and USA's were about the same. I got eighth. Um, but I think my class at the Amateur Olympia was a little bit bigger than USA's.
Mhm.
And then my first national show was like, Lord, I actually got like top 12. And I look, but it's just like, it's a matter of who shows up, what the standard was back then. And
Mhm.
like, and then my best package was this last one, and I literally got lost last call outs.
At nationals, yeah,
Yeah,
in
but it
Dallas.
was like, and obviously, and this was like one thing when we were talking about what topic we were going to talk about. That was one thing I wanted to say is like, obviously, we all get up there to win. that's what we want. But like, we are in a subjective sport, and the sport, especially bikini, like, it's growing. Like, you think about the number of girls that step on the national stage. I mean, even just in any division, but bikini, because it is in the women's division, it is like the most thought attainable division. So that's where a lot of people are going to start. And just like, don't let the placing deter you or like define your success. Like,
Yeah.
obviously we all want to win, but like, this is a you versus you sport, as cliche as it sounds, but it's subjective. Like, we don't have a weight that we're sitting there and we're like, okay, if we lift that weight, we got it. Like, it's very subjective. It's all based on aesthetics. Like, it's based on other people's opinion. Like, yes, there is criteria, but it's people's opinion of what you look like in comparison to the criteria.
Yeah.
Um, so basing it off of how you've improved show to show, and just knowing what like you've gone through in your prep and what you've overcome, because those are the things people don't see. Like, I have a few clients that competed this season, and like, they didn't win an overall, they didn't win a first place, but like, me knowing the like trials and tribulations they came through in that prep, and like knowing their full transformation of where they started and where they ended, like, they won before they even stepped on the stage. So
Yeah.
I know it sounds cliche, but especially when you start competing, you can't be like, oh, I'm going to go get an overall, and if I don't get an overall, then like, I'm not meant for the sport. Like, that's not it at all.
Yeah, because an overall, it's like one person gets it, nobody
Mhm.
else. And
Yeah.
so you have to consider, and like, say there's 10 bikini classes, like only 10 people win out of like 60,
Yeah.
right? So there's a lot or more depending on,
The
national
show.
versus
Yeah.
regional. So like at a national class, like NPC nationals, generally there's like 30, 40 girls in one class.
I
So
had 48 in my national show.
yeah,
Yeah.
like that's insane. And so I think you're right. It can't be about the placing. I've actually like said this twice in check-ins today, like talking to prep clients, is that if we make bodybuilding and competing only about one thing, like
Hmm.
placing or being shredded or
Yeah.
getting glammed up on show day, like a lot of girls kind of look towards as a why, then like it's not going to take you very far, and it's
Yeah.
not going to make you stronger when you really need the strength.
And I
We
feel like
really
you're
need this.
gonna I had this conversation at a local posing clinic too, and it's like, at the end of the day, like, this is supposed to be fun. And if
Yeah.
you're only basing it on placings and like winning, you're gonna live in the negative part more than you are in the positive part. Like, you're
Well, you're
gonna
not going to
lose
last
more.
long enough in the sport
Yeah,
to.
you're gonna lose way more than you're gonna win in this sport. And if you, I mean, obviously, like, when I started competing, I was like, oh yeah, road to pro, like, but the reality is too, like, and you know this, you can speak to this, like, when you get to the pros, like, you're back at the bottom of the barrel. So like, enjoy your rise in the NPC, and there's more experience, there's more people to meet, there's more networking. Like, base it on that. Like, I've met my best friends through this sport, aka like you, and so base it on that. And sorry, it's not just physical growth, it's also mental. Like, I've become such a better person because of like the different mental strengths and the mental like fortitude I've had to like put forth because of prep and because of this sport. And it's all like one big package that comes together. It's not just physical.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're someone who's like, you've been competing just as long as I have. So we both started 2015, 2016, and
Mhm.
now it's like almost 10 years later.
Mhm.
And like, just I think some people might look at something on paper like, oh, you've been competing that long and you haven't gotten your pro card, but like, that's how it is for most people. Or like,
Yeah.
for me, you've been competing this long as a pro and you haven't, won a pro show. But
Yeah.
again, like, you're going to lose more times than you win. And I truly believe that like the people that are most successful in the sport aren't basing their success only on their placings or their, or the following or something, whatever. they're placing it on multiple things.
Yeah.
I'm successful as a bodybuilder because, like you said, it's made me a better person. It's brought me the best people into my life that I could possibly imagine. It's brought me discipline. It's made me a coach. Like
Yeah.
bodybuilding, no, I didn't do a show and then become a coach. I think I didn't start actually coaching competitors until 2020,
Mhm.
2021 era. And that, like, it took a while for me to learn and for me to gain confidence enough to be a coach,
Yeah.
and now be a good coach that's continuing to get better. So bodybuilding, even if you're never going to do coaching, it does have to be about more, and everyone's why is going to be different, but being able to
Mhm.
have a strong why and purpose behind what you're doing, it does help. It helps you be more successful, but it also helps you have more fun with it,
Totally.
because
And like
yeah.
the lessons that you've learned and like the things that you've gone through to make you a better person, has that come from your wins or has it more come from like your losses? Like for me, it's come
Yeah.
from my losses. Like if you just keep winning, you're like, oh, I'm the best. I don't have anything to improve on. And I think that's also a mindset that like I think that it's a big negative or it's going to like work against you. Like thinking you're the smartest in the room or you know exactly what you should be doing and you know what's best. Like be a student in life, be a student in the sport. Like never feel like you're the smartest person in the room because even though you may not agree with someone else's opinion, you can also learn from that as well. Like be more open-minded, don't be closed-minded onto like your approach and things like that. Like and I always say too, like one approach isn't going to work for everyone, but also that same approach isn't going to work for that person year after year after year after year because you're going to have to change with like the seasons that you're going through. Like I've gone through health seasons, I've gone through push seasons, and like you just have to know like where you are in your life to determine what protocol is best for you at that time.
Hmm. And what level that your coach is at too. I think
Mhm.
that's an important part of it. Is like we both started with the same coach. That's how we
Mhm.
met, and I think that that coach was great for us at those
Yeah.
times. And then
Yeah.
eventually we outgrew that coach. And I'd say
Totally.
like both of us, like that's a hard thing when you've been with a coach for a long time and you realize that maybe you could be more successful with another coach,
Mhm.
because it's like it's a hard decision sometimes, and it should be a hard decision,
Yeah.
because when you go from coach to coach to coach to coach,
Yeah.
just trying to search for the perfect protocol or trying to search for like the perfect, level of attention or whatever, then you're not giving any coach their true time to shine. So I
That's
think
what I was just going to say. Yeah.
that's one thing that's going to be most beneficial to a new competitor, is like, do your fucking research when
Mhm.
you're hiring a coach, and talk to multiple coaches.
Yeah.
Don't just go with the coach that has the most pros or has the most wins or has the most followers or looks the best, because those things aren't what makes an actual good coach for you. The
Mhm.
person who's going to be the best coach for you is, someone with great athletes, obviously, someone who knows what they're doing and can showcase that, whether it's through their content or, whatever it is.
Mhm.
But also it's someone that you vibe with and you align
Yeah.
with in terms of what are their values. If your coach can't answer the question on what their values are, then how are they going to make decisions when things get difficult, or when they run into snags, or when, you run into obstacles that you can't figure out on your own? Because a
Totally.
coach a coach gives you your protocol, your cardio, your meal plan, your drugs or supplements, whatever it
Yeah.
is, but they have to have a way of communicating it to you so that you believe in it and that you
Mhm.
trust it. And not everyone can do that for you as an
Yeah.
individual.
And that's what I was going to say too. Like, you should feel like the right coach is where you feel safe and where you feel like you can trust them. You're not second guessing everything they're saying because if you're second guessing it in your head, your body's not gonna fully like take on the process and get the most out of it. But I feel like there's a happy medium. Like you said, there's these clients that jump from coach to coach to coach because they do like one show and they're like, oh, I didn't win, so it must be the coach's fault, so I'm gonna go to a new coach. And then it's like, oh, I still didn't win, so they must suck too, so I'm gonna go to the next one. But there's a happy medium of not jumping coach to coach and giving a coach some solid time to like actually get you in the groove, get improvements. But then there's also those people that, because we do develop relationships with our coaches, like we're telling them very intimate parts of our lives, like they're involved. Like I have women that'll tell me that they're pregnant before they even tell like their significant
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
um but I do think there is a time to know, like, hey, I think I've outgrown this process and it's time for me as an athlete to move on and try something new.
Yeah.
And if you are feeling like you're totally second guessing everything that's happening, you feel like your body has more to give and you're just not being pushed, like, I think that's the time. And you've been with the coach for like, I'd say at least a year, to give them time to really let their protocol or their methods go to work. I think that's the time when it's like, okay, maybe I should start shopping for a new coach. But then, like you said, make sure that you're interviewing them, you're asking them questions, you guys align, you have good communication. So they
So I think
really would go.
first, before that, like a step that was missing in that process
Yeah.
is talking to the coach and really
Oh, the one you're
communicating with
gonna
them.
leave.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yes.
because
Yes.
that's one thing that like I think clients don't give any coach enough credit for in terms of like how a coach can be better for you, because you don't know how a coach might be able to be flexible,
Mm-hmm.
and you might think that a coach only coaches this way, like that's
Yep.
her coaching style, that's Rachel's coaching style, this is how she coaches, I don't know if I align with this anymore, so I'm going to find a new coach. But in you what happens, I think, is people think that way when before they even ask the question like, hey, why are we doing this way, or hey,
Yep.
what do you think about doing this a different way? Because like chances are your coach really cares about you if you have a good
Yeah.
coach. And if it's been working up until a certain point, like if you've been with the coach for a year plus 2-3 years, then like there's a reason for that. So
Yeah.
always communicate, and that's in like any relationship. Communication
Oh, yes.
before like you jump ship is so important, because you never know what a coach might be willing to like adjust or kind of team up with you on,
Mm-hmm.
or figure out a better way of explaining it to you so you do have better buy-in.
Yeah. And that, I was going to say that, like, it's not just on the coach, like you also need to do your role as an athlete. Like I have this whole getting started guide that people will read through, and I have a communication section, and it's like communication comes from both ways. Like I want to educate you. I say I have the 3 E's. Like I want to educate you, empower you, and then like help you evolve like in all aspects of your life. But I can't do my role to my best ability if I'm not getting full open communication from you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's on both of you. Like you said, it's like any relationship. Like communication is a two-way street, and you need to have open communication on both ends in order for it to work.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think then that like next step, if like the communication just like isn't happening and you're still feeling really uneasy or
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable maybe with your protocol or like how things are going, or uncomfortable with the communication, then like yeah, that is the time to like think about it, talk to other coaches, and but also like write down the things that aren't working for you with that coach, and then
Yep.
use that as a springboard to then ask the new coach or potential new coach questions like, what do you do when this happens, like what is your protocol with this kind of thing, like what's your opinion on this? Because if you're not asking those questions, then you're kind of setting yourself up to just walk in blindly and just like give everything to this coach that you know nothing about, but
Yep.
you're only working with them because they coached this person or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And the reality is that a lot of people don't want to think about is that a lot of coaches, star athletes that people look up to and they're like, oh, I want to work with that coach because of her or him. Their star athletes would be star athletes with anybody,
Yeah,
like
for
with
sure.
any coach. And that's
Especially in
not a
this sort
knock
of
on the
sport.
coach. It doesn't mean the coach doesn't know what they're doing. It just means that like the coach knows what they're doing with that athlete, but that athlete is also working really hard.
Yeah.
So you have to be honest with yourself and say like, okay, I want to hire this coach because it looks like they do a good job with these athletes, but also you have to think about, I want to hire this coach because I'm going to put in the work to
Yep.
do my best to get there. And I'm being realistic about my genetics and my structure and how far or close it is from their star athlete,
Yep.
because that's a huge important thing. A lot of coaches get lucky with their star athletes, and that carries them really
Yeah.
far. Like,
I did a post similar to this, and this can go for like, I mean, this can be competitors or just like someone that's trying to choose a coach to like help them transform in a lifestyle,
yeah,
help them lose weight. Like you can have, it's like anything. Good coaching is going to supplement a good, like solid athlete or client that's already doing their homework. So like I always like to think of like a report card. So you can't just have good supplementation. You can't just have the workouts. You can't just have the nutrition and the star coach. Like everything needs to have like an A in order for it to work. And you got to think deeper. Like your stress management needs to be there. Your like
internal
recovery
health.
needs to be there, your communication, your internal health. Like you have to, that coach isn't going to just like solve everything for you. You still need to be putting in the work and making sure that like the coach has all of the tools and you're putting all of those tools to work as they've prescribed. So like you still have a job and homework to do. You can't just like hire the coach and then expect everything
Magic.
to be fixed and be better.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what would you say is like something, if you were to look back at your first season as a competitor, what would be one thing that you changed about it?
Not eat like a retard. Like I did I mean I am very big on macro based diets and flexible diets, especially for lifestyle and like improvement season. But I think there's a big difference between macro tracking and flexible dieting and then like the if it fits your macros approach. Like, oh, let's see what crap food I can fit in my macros today. Like
What was
that
the
was my
worst
whole
thing that
first
you
prep.
ate during your prep?
Huh?
What's like the cringiest thing that you ate during your prep, like
Um,
IIFYM thing?
I I just think like I think like those fucking tofu noodles, like the shirataki
Miracle
bullshit.
noodles.
The what?
The
Yes,
miracle
like
noodles.
ugh, like that. What is that? It was like slimy, and I used to think they were so good. And
Yeah,
then I would fit like Halo Top into my macros like every day.
every day. Yeah.
Fat free whipped cream in my coffee. Like that's not bad, but it's just like every day. Like no wonder I developed the gut issues I developed. Like
No, that's true. It's crazy. And it's like, especially when you're going into bodybuilding again for like maybe more of a surface level reason, or like,
Mhm.
I just want to do this because it'll, I'm gonna get lean.
Yeah.
And but you're doing it in a way that's like you're kind of like your gut, you're attacking your system just
Yeah.
because you can, and just because we're told like it's calories in, calories out, that's it. And I also, my first, not my first prep, but my first prep with more of a flexible dieting approach, which is my
Mhm.
second prep ever, I did the same thing.
Well, and
I
I think when you and I were like doing that was it. That's what was like out in the industry. Like flexible dieting was this if it fits your macros, it's like all the influencers I was following, that's what they were doing. And I feel like the industry has taken a turn for the better and there's been more like talk of like the functional approach. So it was either like there was like if it fits your macros and you were like filling your macros with yeah, it does the thumbs up thing. Filling your macros with like bull crap, or it was like you were eating tilapia, asparagus, and fucking rice for every single meal and eating cucumbers as you please. Like there was no like in between. It was
yeah.
like one extreme or the other.
And no one really
And
talked about the in between either. Like, I remember my first prep was that harsh meal plan approach where like
Mhm.
3 meals a day were tilapia and asparagus, 2 meals a day were egg whites. And
Yeah.
then like I got, one serving of almond butter, but it couldn't be peanut butter, and like, then coconut oil, and that was it. And like it was awful. It was
Yeah.
not enjoyable. It was terrible for my health and my mental health, and that's what
Yeah.
started me having like a really shitty relationship with food,
Yeah.
when I had never really binged before. But after that prep and throughout that prep, I binged hard.
Yeah.
And then, it took years and prepping and finding flexible dieting to like get out of that.
Hmm.
Um, but then the net, because of how that first prep went with that type of meal plan and coach, I was like, I need something different. I need the opposite of this.
Yeah.
And, hiring Paul, like that was the opposite. It was
Yep.
like, oh, he's like so much more open and flexible, and I can, I'm more empowered to choose my foods. And like, those are great things. But if you're not given some kind of guideline about and like, not just guidelines, like you have to follow these rules, but just the education and understanding of what food does for us and what it does that's against us.
Yeah.
Like you developing some pretty serious gut issues, probably in part due to that type of eating, but also just like your upbringing and how you ate like through college and stuff like that.
Yeah, and stress and things of that nature. I was gonna say something, now I lost my train of thought. Now I forgot. What I was gonna say is like my very, very, so I've had 3 coaches, only 2 in like my bodybuilding career. But my very first coach, who like I'm still friends with to this day, and he like I didn't leave him because of like him. I more was like because he was a meal plan, still is a meal plan person.
Mm-hmm.
And when and I saw results with him, but then when like flexible dieting was being talked about, I'm like, I don't want to eat this. I want to eat whatever I want. And so like you, like I went searching for a coach that had a more flexible approach. And while I think there is a lot of benefits to macros, it's very educational, like, and that's just tracking in general. I didn't have that. I was just like honed in on like, oh, I can fit in Lindy and Larry's cookies. I can fit in Halo Top. I can eat whatever I want. I don't have to eat fish and rice and potatoes, even though that's like how I eat now, because that's like what I feel best eating and it fuels my body. And like you said, I understand now what nutrition does for my body and how to make the most out of it versus like, ooh, what, like I'm taking it from more of like a taste bud perspective. And I say that I thought it tastes good then, like, but now I'm like, ooh, like I think about, like you said, those miracle noodles, like what? Like, why did I think those were good?
I think because that flexible dieting world, especially back then when it was first being like popularized, the IFYM,
Mm-hmm.
what it was, it gave you a sense of like control and like entitlement over food. Like it
Mm-hmm.
gave people that sense of like, I get to eat this and still reach my goals.
Yep.
And so then it makes you think like, I should be able to have this because of these macros, and I should be able to do this, when it's like, that's not really a rule that works for you all the time, when
Yeah.
especially when like you start developing gut issues, or you
Yeah.
start developing an eating disorder or disordered habits around tracking. Like one thing that I think came from, for me personally, that came from that IFYM lifestyle was hoarding macros and not really
Oh yes.
understanding or caring, honestly, about
Mm-hmm.
the power of food as fuel versus food as macros that I can hit. And
Yeah.
so like I would have maybe 20 carbs pre-workout,
Yep.
and then, a decently sized like 40 carb post-workout meal. And this would be like even in an off season, I would do this, and
And then
then
you'd have like 150 carbs before you go to bed.
yeah, I would have like 1,000-calorie meal be as my last meal,
Mm-hmm.
but it's okay because it's IFYM and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, technically that's true. Your calories in and your calories out, like if it adds up, it adds up, and you technically shouldn't gain any weight if you're at a certain calorie amount. But what I found just over maturing as an athlete and just getting away from that type of decision making
Mm-hmm.
was like, all right, I really need to improve. And I don't want to feel this way, or I don't want my body composition to be like this. So
Mm-hmm.
how do I do that? I have to like listen to the hard lessons, like putting more carbs around my training,
Yep.
and not having super like my only fat source be peanut butter, and like not having a fixation on a certain type of food, but rather just focusing on like what is good for me. And good for me means like what's going to digest well, what's going to help me perform better.
Mm-hmm.
And not having like every food decision be about like, is this gonna make me feel good? Like in
Yeah.
here, it has to make you feel good like everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah. And that's something that like I do with, and like the way I've like built my coaching, I feel like it, like, yes, education is very important and things like that. But I also think you build it from experience, right? Like you
Mhm.
learn a lot from your
Yeah,
experiences.
absolutely.
And the way I coach now is I think of me as like a new athlete or a new like person to this lifestyle. What did I need back then to optimize my plan more
Hmm.
to make me have more success or feel better through the process and avoid those struggles that I did go through, because that's what I want to do as a coach, and that's what made me want to coach is I don't want anyone to have to feel the way that I felt or go through. And like that's not to say like it was just like health related, but like the confidence I went through, like the confidence issues, the self-worth issues. And I'm not like saying that that was a coach's problem. That was like deep inner problems of me. But that's what really like influenced me to coach is like I don't want women to feel that way. I want women to know that they're a badass, find their inner strength. That's going to be different from everyone, but like optimize their health from the inside out. And when it comes to like if it fits your macros, like if you think about overall health from the inside out, filling your day with processed foods all day is not going to be optimal health. And so when I'm doing the nutrition plan, like I do provide them with macros, but then I'll provide them with like an example day of eating. But then I also give them information like, okay, your pre and post workout. I actually tell them that I want them to keep their pre and post workout as I've written them, because like you said, I don't want them hoarding macros to the end of the day. I want them making the most out of their workout. So properly fueling it before and then refueling it after to make sure we're getting the most out of those workouts. But then I'll also talk about the benefits of having carbs before bed, like what it'll do, making sure that there's fat in that meal, like, because that's going to help your sleep. It's going to help keep your blood sugar in line. It's going to keep your cortisol from spiking so you don't wake up hungry and things like that. And talk to them, just like tell them the best times, like, okay, you're a night shift worker, so we need to make sure that you're properly fueling yourself during your shift. You're not eating during your shift. Like a lot of these night shift workers are nurses. I'm
Hmm.
sorry, if I'm in the hospital and I'm like needing to be cared for, I don't want a nurse that's like deprived of food, they're brain fog because they haven't eaten, like all of that. We need
Yeah.
to make sure that we're fueling our day. And you're in school, you're studying, like you need fuel to take in that information and do your best. Like food is so powerful that like we don't give it enough credit. And if we really learn what it does for our body, that is, like I said, I want to educate, empower, and help you evolve. And that is something that I really focus on is like nutrition. And I always say, like, I never use the word cheat meal because I think that gives a bad connotation with food. And I also don't really use the word, it's different when you're working with a competitor because, like, obviously we're going into a deficit and we are dieting. But like with my lifestyle clients, I don't really use the word diet because it's a lifestyle. We're not changing what you're doing. We just may be lowering the amount of food that you're eating. The types of foods aren't changing. It's just like, but this is a lifestyle for you, right?
Hmm.
And then
Behavior.
just like educating them on like what food actually does to their body. Like, because we live in a society that has told us like you need to eat less, do more, and you'll get small, and that's what we need in this world. And that's
Hmm.
not true.
Yeah. Oh, it is true, and I like the thing you said about food being powerful because I think a lot of people think food is powerful, but for the wrong reasons.
Hmm.
They think like food is so powerful, like it's what we celebrate with, it's what we
Yes.
spend quality time with people with, it's what you know rewards us for
Rewards.
doing
Yeah, that's what I was
well,
just gonna say.
or or soothes us if we feel bad. And,
Hmm.
that's the power we allow food to have over us.
Hmm.
But really, food shouldn't have that power over you. That's the difference, is that food in that way, in with those things, has power and control over
Hmm.
us and our emotions and our feelings and our quality of life and our self-worth. And then that continues down a darker path where you can't stop or you can't control yourself around certain foods. But if we can shift what that power is and where that power comes from, that's when you really like you adopt the lifestyle and you
Mm-hmm.
figure it out and you're actually at peace and you have control over food and you
Yep.
don't see it as this thing that's that all powerful thing that's like causing you to binge or causing you to do something with food. It's like it's powerful because it can heal you. It's
Yeah.
powerful because it fuels fucking badass strong training. It's powerful because it can get you shredded on stage if you
Yep.
use it properly. But saying that you need a meal to celebrate a birthday,
Mm-hmm.
guess how many birthdays are in your life every year? Are
Yeah.
you going to fuck off every single time there's a birthday? What about
Mm-hmm.
all the other celebrations?
Yeah.
And you're making food the center of that
Yep.
instead of the person's birthday and the
Yeah.
person that you
That's
spend
what
time with.
I was going to say that. I think that's one like good lesson that I learned in prep, because like when you're in prep, when you go to these functions, like you're generally not eating, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like I remember before when we would plan, like my family is very like close, and we celebrate everything. Like my boyfriend Jeff, he's not a big social person. He's like, your family literally celebrates like your nephew losing a tooth. Like they want to celebrate all the time. And I remember when we would be like planning celebrations, like I would literally like tell them what I wanted them to cook, and I would bring stuff to make sure food was there that I want. Like I would base me going off of like what food was going to be there and like what wine was going to be there. They're going to have my favorite wine, like stuff like that. But like in prep I couldn't do that. And so like it took that focus away from me, and I was like, you know what? I really enjoy just being around these people. I enjoy just going down and seeing my family and laughing and talking. Like it doesn't have to be about the food. It's more about like the experiences and the relationships. And so like even now, that's why it's become like such a lifestyle. Like, yeah, if I go down and it's something that like sounds good, I'll have it. But if it's like something I know that like isn't gonna, because I do have, like we've mentioned, I did have gut issues. And so there's still stuff that I need to be careful with. And I know what sits well with my body and what doesn't. And if they're having something that doesn't sit well with my body, I'll bring my own, or I'll just like eat before I go, and it's no big deal to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's truly become a lifestyle, and like I want food that's going to properly fuel my body and do my body a service, not a disservice.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think that it helps too, and I've started realizing this with as I see clients start to get it,
Mm-hmm.
um, in terms of this and like with food and how you go about like going to events and date nights and things like that. Whether you're in prep, out of prep, lifestyle,
Yeah.
whatever, is like if you find yourself like second guess yourself when you say I really want to be able to eat this exact food for my my birthday or my or Christmas or this kind of thing, and it's like there's nothing wrong with that, like
Mm-hmm.
eat what you want, but think about what you're saying. Do you need this food to enjoy quality time with your family, this
Yeah.
exact food? Because if you didn't have it, would you just say fuck my family, I don't
Yeah.
care, I don't want to spend time with them?
Yeah.
No,
Another
like
thing too, like if you're craving food like that, like if you're so food focused, you may need to look at how you're fueling yourself the rest of the time, because you're probably being deprived in some way.
mhm,
Because the body's going to tell you what it needs. Like for me, I'm in my off season now, and like I get a free meal a week. And just this past weekend, like it was Sunday night, and Jeff was like, "Oh, did you want to like get dinner?" And I was like, "Oh, I kind of forgot that I like didn't have my free meal yet." And I'm like, you know what? No, like I don't feel like I need it. Like I'm fueled by the food that I eat. I enjoy the food that I eat. My body feels good. Like, no, I'm good.
yeah,
Like, so if you're having those intense, like, and like, it's also like being real with yourself. Like, oh, I'm craving cake. I must be deprived. So let me have the cake. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, like, look at how you're fueling yourself, like, during the week. Like, are your macros overall at a good spot? Is your fat at a good spot? Like, I think that gets missed a lot with women and our overall health is like, they eat such low fat because, like, that's the way we're like programmed from society, like low fat this, fat free that. So we like naturally go for those choices. And if we're not properly like tracking or working with someone that knows nutrition, then we're depriving ourselves from that dietary fat that we need.
mhm,
And it's like
yeah,
finding that spot. Again, everybody's body's different. Like finding your internal health. Like for me, I don't do well on high fat. Like my body puts on fat very easily at high fat, but carbs, my body processes like a freaking machine. So like I'm very good at like my body feels its best at like a moderate fat level, higher carb, higher protein.
Yeah.
And like even through prep, like my fat has to get like very low for me to get lean, but my carbs can stay pretty moderate. But that's going to be different for everyone.
Yeah.
So it's like
Well,
finding out, and that's what like working with the coach where you can learn your internal, like what your body does best with.
yeah, definitely. So now that I asked a question about like your biggest like mistake or regret or like thing you would
Mhm.
change about your first prep, what would be the same question for your most recent prep or like the last
Um,
year as a bodybuilder? It doesn't have to be prep; it could be off season too.
I would just say like honestly, like just taking the pressure off. Like from
Mm-hmm.
owning a gym, I felt like I had to like live up to like a certain standard, and I'm a people pleaser at heart, and like I'm like a recovering people pleaser. I feel like I've gotten better, but like everyone would make the comments like because it was my best package for sure, and people were like, oh, pro card loading, you're gonna go get that pro card, and like they're saying that from like a means of like support and motivation, and I was taking it in as like, if I don't live up to that statement, I'm going to disappoint them.
Yeah.
And that's not true. Like, I still got off stage and everyone was so proud of me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it did not matter on the placement. It just, like, everyone was so proud. And honestly, like, being a coach too, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, are my clients going to leave me because I didn't get my pro card? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't have one client leave me. Like, no, they still like look up to you. And I think that the true champions, it's not if you win or you lose, it's how you handle those situations and
Yeah.
like how you come back from them.
Yeah, and I think that's what gets you closer to the win as well, like to the actual win is
Mm-hmm.
like being just more or less unattached to the outcome of something because when you're really attached to the outcome, it means that when you lose big.
Yes.
And like if I lose at a show, if I don't win, or if I get last call outs or whatever, like the rest of my life really doesn't change. It doesn't
Exactly.
change how good of a coach I am. It just
Yeah.
changes, the fact that I didn't do great as an athlete myself. And
Yeah.
so I think that's important to think about as like a coach athlete for anybody listening to this, or as an athlete of a coach who's an athlete, is just like always go back to like who the person is, who you are as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Are you doing a good job? Are you showing up for your people? Are you not being an asshole? Like,
Yeah.
are you like doing everything you can to be the
I was,
best? Like,
yeah, I was gonna say,
none of
like,
it
if
is.
you can look back at your prep and be like, I literally did everything I possibly could. I gave my 100% every day, and that 100% may change day to day. Like, we have our off days. So your
Yeah.
100% where you're feeling totally on is going to be different than 100% when you've had shit sleep, when you have a lot of stress. But like, you can truly say you gave your 100% and you enjoyed the process. Like, I always tell clients too, and I'm really trying to get better at this, is like, I say go in with no expectations. Now, I'm not saying like go in and like not give a shit, but like don't have expectations going back to like don't let a placing define your success. Like don't go in there and be like, "Oh, I'm getting the overall and if I don't get the overall, then like I'm not made for this." Like that's not it at all. Like go in, enjoy the process, do what you can do to bring your best, and if you don't get the outcome you want, learn from it, get feedback. That is like another piece of advice for like new competitors. Like get feedback from the judges
Hmm.
and get feedback from multiple judges. So
Yeah.
you
At
know,
the show.
like, yeah, at the show. Don't email them after because like if they're
You must
emailing
email them because some shows like that's their rule. They don't
right,
allow in-person
yeah,
feedback. But like if it's possible, fucking wait for the show to be over
which
and
I
get
feel like
feedback.
not allowing in-person feedback is very rare.
I've
Like
been
even at
seeing it a lot
nationals.
more
Oh,
nowadays.
are you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even at nationals, like Sandy's comes backstage
Yeah.
and like
At
gives you
nationals,
feedback.
they still do in person, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, I've seen more and more shows where they just say like, don't go up to the judges after the show, do the email, and it's
Okay.
honestly probably because people get bitter and butthurt after a show when
Yeah.
they know what the judges. So that's
Their
watch that
emotions are
happen.
high. Yeah. But the thing that I was gonna say about emailing, like if you can go in person because if you email, you're emailing your stage shots. And I'm just gonna say, like, stage shots aren't always the best representation of like what you looked like, especially
Yeah.
if you're getting your stage shots in the Pacific Northwest. Um,
If you know, you know.
yeah, if you know, hashtag. Um, so yeah, get your feedback and then like I think there is also like people take feedback as criticism, but like the judges don't mean it as criticism. They're not telling you, hey, you look like shit, work on this. like generally you still look really good. There's just little tweaks and little improvements you can make to be better to fit the criteria. They
Yeah.
aren't saying you need to like get leaner to be more popular or better in life. They're saying to meet this criteria, this is what you need to do to improve
Yeah.
on.
It should not affect your self-worth.
Yeah.
Nothing about your placing in bodybuilding or what the judge says should affect your self-worth. And
Yeah.
that's
And if you have like, you don't have tough skin, this probably isn't the best sport for you.
no, probably not. Because like even as you get to be the best of the best, like even as you reach your highest peak, that's when you're gonna have a lot of haters too. Because
Mhm.
there's gonna be people that don't want to see you win because you did it a different way than them. You know,
Yeah.
when I got my pro card naturally, my first time going for a pro card, like that was a big deal at that time.
Mhm.
It still would be, honestly, probably even
Yeah.
more of a big deal because of just where the sport is at.
And the division you're in.
Yeah, in the division of being in figure. Um, and like I got a lot of people that said that I was a terrible person because I was lying and I was ruining people's like self-worth
They
by
said that you
lying.
weren't natural, like they were thinking you weren't
Yeah,
natural.
saying that I was lying because I no IFBB pro is natural. And it was just like that, like people would tell me that you're lying, you're a terrible person, how dare you, how
Yeah.
do you sleep at night, like having all of that come to you after you win, like have the biggest win of your life, that's fucking hard. And like
Mhm.
I don't have many people on my blocked list, but the only people that I have blocked on social media are people like that
Yeah.
harassed me because of that kind of thing. And I
And
wasn't even one of those like lifetime natty hashtag natural
like
athlete.
you didn't like talk down about, like, not that people talk down, but they're sometimes I feel like people put it like they're better because they stayed
Oh,
natural and they
for
did it
sure.
naturally. Yeah.
Yeah, just better in some way, whether it's morally or legally or whatever. And it's like for me, I just never wanted, I never cared that much. Like my goal was like, it wasn't that I want to get a pro card naturally. It was like, I want to just see where I can go.
Yeah.
And like at a certain point, I'm sure I'll reach that point and see if I want to do drugs or not. And then I reached the point and I was like, yeah, let's do it.
Hell yeah,
So
sign me up.
yeah, sign me up. um, so yeah, I think that thick skin thing is definitely an important one. And just not letting other people's opinions or projections
Yep.
affect you, because most people that are going out of their way to show their opinion or their judgment of you, it's because of something they're dealing with on
Yeah.
their side of things. Like their coping mechanism in life is to put you down
And
by
you're the punching
projecting their
bag.
shit.
Yeah.
And so if
Yeah.
you can just remember that when anyone is being shitty to you or giving you really just like shitty feedback or whatever, or if someone's giving you constructive feedback, like always remember, like think about where it comes from. Why would they be saying this? If it's a judge giving you feedback to get leaner, they're not calling you a fat ass. They're just telling you what you need to do. But
Yeah.
if it's someone else telling you you're a shitty person because you're lying about being natural and you're natural, then like that's on them. That's not on you.
Yeah. Like if you know at the end of the day, like I just had a similar situation happen where I'm not going to go into detail, but like basically someone was telling me my morals, and for a second I was like, wait, did I do something wrong? But then like I took a step back and I'm like, no, like I stuck to my morals. I coached the way I coached, and like there were issues happening before this all happened. Like this is just like I'm the punching bag right now. Like
Yeah.
as long as I stuck to my morals and I did the things that I like to do and I stuck to my values, I know my self-worth. I know what I did and what I didn't do, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. Because also, like, one of the fears that like has crossed through my mind now that I'm like becoming a coach and I'm working with more people and people see my athletes, people that know me and know my values and the true people I want around me, even if they hear that, they're going to be like, no, like
Yeah.
that's not even true.
Yeah.
So if you're worried about people and how they think about you, or if like, oh, people aren't going to like me as much because I don't place as well, like the people you want in your corner, that's not going to impact. And if it impacts people, like, bye, fine.
Yeah.
Like
We
they
don't
can
need
leave.
that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being on the podcast. I feel like
Yeah.
we could talk about this shit for hours, but
Oh,
I know you got to go and I do
yeah.
too. But Thank you for being on. If
Yes.
anyone wants to follow you or reach out to you, work with you, how do
Yeah.
they reach you?
It's just Danielle Rainwater on Instagram. I have like my little website linked on my Instagram. You can sign up. I do free consultations. I have different like packages as well. Like I have competition prep, I have lifestyle prep. But if you're just someone that's like looking to kind of get a guide and kind of get rolling, I have like an 8-week program too, where you only paying every 8 weeks. So it's just a good, you can like upgrade whenever you want. It's a good kind of like starting point. And a big thing for my coaching is like community. So I do a lot of like if you're local to Washington, I do a lot of meetups, I do special events, I do posing classes, I do posing seminars, and I post that all on my Instagram. So if you're local to Washington, you're a competitor, even if you work with other coaches, like I really want to build up the community of strong, like-minded women. So come out, follow my Instagram, come to the events, come say hi.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Danielle's a great posing coach. She's helped some of my clients as well, and always grateful for her. So
Oh, love you.
love you.
Miss you.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yes, love you. Talk to you soon.